All right, guys. Huge, crazy week we just had. We got a little bit of celebration vibes going on over here. Me and the coach over here both secured playoff spots. So, first of all, congratulations, coach. Welcome back in. What you sipping on to celebrate?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. I got some fine wine right here, if you can't tell. Anyone that's looking to get some, this is the brand you want to pick up right here.
Mm. Where is
Straight
that
out the
from?
box.
Is that from France or?
Uh yeah, I'm on the French beaches right now celebrating this victory, and I happen
Mm.
to pick it up at the local food line. So
Well, that was quite a game you had. Pretty crazy stuff, man. But we'll get into that here right now. Just gonna take a quick look at the standings, and yeah, man, crazy tight. Lot to dissect here. Big week. Seven of the eight playoff spots secured. So we're fighting for that eighth spot, and we got one. We got four teams all readily available. We do have the playoff scenarios that we'll get into in a little bit, but right now we're just going to go ahead and break down last week's scores, and I'm just going to go right to the game that we were all watching last night. Mister Coach Phenom here, and Fentanyl coming down to the wire. Questionable holding call there at the end. Could have had Fentanyl get the win. Because it was a Chris Godwin touchdown called back. And Brady finds White for a touchdown and secures the victory. But what a crazy game that was. I don't think I've ever experienced a fantasy game like that in a long time. But how you feeling coming off that one, Phenom?
oh yeah, I'm feeling great. As you could tell, I'm out here celebrating, got the whole family out here enjoying the beach, take a little break before we get back into it next week. But yeah, talk about a tough week. I don't think this could have happened had Lamar Jackson stayed healthy, but he
Sure.
didn't. It's unfortunate for Baltimore, but we had a really tight game there up until the end of the fourth quarter, and Tom Brady wasn't looking too hot starting the game out. But I drafted these two quarterbacks because these guys just get the job done when you least expect it, and he pulled through. I think good call on the Chris Godwin touchdown. I think I'm glad that one got turned around. I punched a hole in the wall when I saw it go down, but yeah, so
It's
didn't see that
crazy, man.
outcome the way it was, and outside of the injury, couldn't ask for a better outcome. So
Yeah, I mean, it really did come down to until that touchdown at the end. It really did come down to just one throw here, one half point PPR there. Really could have been the difference, but that touchdown at the end sealed it. But yeah, I mean, I agree with your point. If Lamar doesn't get hurt, I mean, you don't win this game. There's just no way. I mean, even Lamar's had a down fantasy season. We can kind of get into that if you wanted to, but I mean, he's gonna get you probably on a down week. He's gonna get you 14, 15 points. So I think Fentanyl here, overall decent showing, especially from the running back groups. Three guys, 15, 14, 16 points. That's something to build on. Down week for the receivers a little bit, but I see this team still being a problem in the playoffs as long as Lamar. I think he's not going to play this week, but next week. So first week of the playoffs, I think he'll be back. I think it gives Fentanyl a good chance to make some noise. And as far as you go, man, I mean, DK had a real big day for you. Geno Smith balled out, but yeah, just lucky to get by there. Brady came up in the end. I hate that guy, but I will say, he did what he did, and had it came back in the end there, and took care of business. So got you in the playoffs and off
oh yeah.
celebrating. So moving on, gonna go to my matchup here with Risky. I said going into it, I felt pretty good about it. This is kind of where I expected it to be. I think I was projected around 111, 112. So I think team kind of just met expectation. Alvin Kamara, another shitty week. But just Christian Watson's been the guy. We talked about it since I picked him up. It's kind of been a joke, but he's been unbelievable. Justin Fields continues to be great. Just guys performing average to above average for the most part, and getting it done, securing my spot. I still don't feel great about my team going against some of these juggernauts at the top, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And Risky, needed a win and Team Coleman lost. We'll get there too. But he, decent showing, 102, gave him a chance to win. just didn't have enough this week. And yeah, he still is not out of the playoffs yet. But what do you see here that really stands out to you?
Yeah, it's good to see that team, Risky Dipper, climb out of the 80-point range, and cross that 100-point threshold. Shows that, it might not be consistent week to week, but he's capable of, putting up some points. I think Jeff Wilson definitely screwed Dipper over, to say the least, and
Yeah,
then I think you can expect more out of Kamara on your team as well as just like one of those games. But overall, I think that what you put up this week, you're looking anywhere between 115, 120 points going forward, and then
gives you a chance.
yep. And then honestly, with some of those other teams that are sitting there at what is it? The other teams at 6 and 7, is it?
It's 5 and 8.
Oh,
Popping over
all
the
teams at
standings
5
real
and 8.
quick. Yeah, there's 4 teams at 5 and 8, and then there's 4 of us at 7 and 6.
That's
So
right. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the outcome is of those 5 and 8 teams, especially Risky Dipper cracking that 100-point threshold this week. We'll see how everyone else did. But,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's got a chance. He needs some help, but he does have a chance. So just moving on here, a little digger down, showing some signs of life. We said it last week. Guy needed a lot of help to get in the playoffs, and everything went right this week for him. He won, and everybody else lost. So he's right back in the mix. 128-point showing. Really strong day for Swift. Seems to kind of figure it out a little bit there. Devontae Adams, #1 wide receiver in fantasy football. Dallas Cowboys defense putting a hurt on the Colts. And Josh Allen, solid day. Tough New England defense. 127 points is going to get you a win in most games we play here. Team Nate. I'm not sure what happened with Joe Mixon. I don't know when he was ruled out. But I guess he's never cleared concussion protocol. I guess it was told on Sunday, but again, we talked about Team Nate last week. Kind of guys just mentally checked out. Couple goose. I mean, Dawson Knox played and got hurt in the fourth quarter, but didn't catch one ball. And Joe Mixon, that's unfortunate with the concussion, but even if he plugs anybody else in on the bench, he's not gonna do it. I mean, even if he dropped Christian Watson for Tyler Lockett, it's only a 10-point swing. Just really good week for Dicker Downs, keeping the playoff hopes alive.
Yep, and yeah, Team Nate, just to highlight this too, he would have outscored 5 other teams this week. So this guy's schedule just is not working out for him. And then Dicker Downs decided to, turn the heat up this week. He's one of the highest scoring, second highest scoring team this week. So
yep,
I'm glad to see him get those high points out of the way, this week. So next week I can get back to what's normal for this team. And then for Team Nate, it's another sad week to see this happen. But I think, you couldn't have totally changed the outcome by catching the Mixon thing. But regardless, like you said, checked out. And I think at this point, strategically, it might be in his best interest just to grab that #1.
Yeah,
draft.
well, he has secured it because we are going to go based off of regular season scheduling for next year's draft, and he is so everyone else 11 through 8 is 5 and 8. He's 3 and 10, so he secures the spot. If he does want to return to the league next year, that #1 spot is his, along with that keeper spot. So there is some promise, there is some hope for this team to get the ball rolling in the right direction. But just moving on here. Another strong week for Team Bucher. We talked about it week in, week out with him. Just even got a goose egg out of Cortland Sutton. Didn't matter because Tony Pollard's been, week in, week out, guy's been a monster. Geno Smith, again, model of consistency. Just a really strong output from a lot of really good players, and highlighted by the Browns defense. Oh, yeah. I know you'd love to see that.
Incredible.
Yeah. And just really, really strong team. Going to be tough to beat. A little bit of trouble with Kenneth Walker. He's been trending down. He's been doing okay. But I mean, he had a real good stretch in here. I think he got a little bit of injury issues this past game, but we'll have to wait and see. But all in all, this team's strong. And Wuhan, kind of like we've been saying, can't beat that 100-point threshold. I think I declared it last week. He was dead and gone. He's still alive in the playoffs. Dude, everybody losing in front of him. But he definitely needs some help. He has players that can do it. Not a bad output from McCaffrey and Pacheco. And Allen finally off the bench, healthy. But just a team, I think it's a little bit too little, too late. Just a couple guys really just not doing it for him. But yeah, what you think?
Yeah, especially seeing Foster, putting up 3.7 fantasy points, and the rumor that Waller might be making his way back. That he might be hurting in that tight end realm there if he does make it into the playoffs. But yeah, overall, he does have some big name players on this team. And as we see, Christian McCaffrey definitely put up more than he was projected. And I think we can see that going forward with, Jimmy being out for his foot. They're going to rely on
They're gonna
Christian.
have to, yeah. They're gonna have to really, and I'm hoping for personal reasons that kind of turns into more Debo touches too. But yeah, I think you got a point with McCaffrey there. But yeah, it
On
just
the
might be a
other,
little too late. But yeah, go
on the
ahead.
other end, team Bucher though, like this is a solid team. And then even the goose egg from Sutton. Sutton's been a decent receiver all year. I got him in one of my other leagues, and he's he puts up some serious points at times. So
Yeah, pretty consistent. I mean, a couple down weeks, bad stretch there. I mean, he's also got Russell Wilson throwing on the ball, so I think
yeah.
that's a lot to do with the problems here. But for the
I,
most part, been better than a goose egg, obviously.
I'd still continue to play him going forward, and you add in an extra,
Hmm.
let's say, even just 8 points out of that. That's impressive. And then that Browns defense, it is an impressive stat, but then again, look who they're up against. So
Yeah, Houston is a joke. So
yeah,
but still,
Ryan's got Dallas defense against Houston next week, so I think Ryan can look forward to 30 points out of his defense. So
yeah. And Deshaun Watson, we'll talk about that a little bit with the Browns,
oh,
looked
yeah.
awful,
Yeah.
looked miserable, like he hadn't been on the football field in 2 years. And
I didn't expect a lot out of him, but I didn't expect that. That's for
no,
sure.
he was bad and real bad. And the Browns' 3 defensive touchdowns they might not win that game against the worst team in the league. So just moving on here, Connor among Thieves looking vulnerable and beating the Rock Boys here. This is the first not sub 130, 140 point performance from either of these teams that I can recall in the last few weeks. Um, but still, we're going to call 119.6 a down week for Connor among Thieves. Sadly for the rest of the league. But Joe Burrow popping off, having a real strong day. Just again, strong team performance. And Rock Boys, uh, I think again, nobody really Kelsey underperformed, I would say, if you're going to single somebody out. But for the most part, um, not a bad team performance at all. 107, it's going to beat you a lot of teams.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean these two teams have proven this since we started this podcast that they're going to be the guys to beat for the most part. And looking forward, I don't really. I will say, just kind of looking at it, ETN. I know last week against the Ravens got hurt for a little bit, but he could have come back in the second half. They didn't play him. Down week this week against a bad Detroit team. I'm not sure what happened in that game. I know Detroit beat the shit out of them, but I don't know why. But yeah, just Josh Jacobs continues to be a beast. But I mean, there is some starting to show some signs of some swinginess in some of the players. So looking a little bit more beatable. And also he did have D Hop and James Conner on by, so take that too. But Rock Boys too, strong team. We know what they are. Going to be both these teams, number one, number two, going to be tough to beat in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely two teams I do not want to have to match up against or face off with, in the playoffs. Both of them are going to definitely deal a big blow. But yeah, that Falcons defense did not work out for Rock Boys, but he made it up with the kicker, So you split those 20 points, 10 and 10. It's still a solid performance both
Sure.
ways. Yeah, overall, I think this might be a down week for both teams, and we can expect more out of both teams going forward. Tua has been, on fire, and then Burrow. I
Yeah.
mean, look at that, 30 fantasy points. So that might be one of the higher performances this week in the quarterback field.
Yeah, and something just to note with Tua, man. I mean, he played that San Fran defense. He didn't not have a great game, but I mean, you putting up 20 points on San Fran as a quarterback, it's
Yeah,
really
second.
impressive stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, again, these teams tough to beat. And then the last one of the week, the team that I am really scared of right now, that's just on an absolute roll, is the Milkman. We've been talking about it. We saw the team starting to catch some fire, and 100, high scorer this week. Just look at Samaje Perine, taking advantage of Mixon being out again. Tyreek Hill, good week. Amon Ra, another really strong week again. San Fran defense, like we talked about, really strong. And Herbert's played better. So just a lot to highlight. Tight end positions weak. And even look at his bench, man. 18.5 and 19.4 from Cam Akers and AJ Dillon, respectively. So I mean, you got 4 point out of Derrick Henry and still put up 147 points.
That's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, this team's looking scary, man.
They're always playing Henry, so
yeah, of course. This is just a team that I don't want to get in the way of, man. There's these top four in our league right now. I'm not interested in playing at all. But unfortunately, that's how playoffs work, and we got to run into them. But they're scary right now. And Coleman, tough to get 40 points out of your quarterback and not score 100 points. Needed the win this week, especially with everybody else losing. Really could have made his playoff chances strong. Left a little bit of points on the bench, but again, it's not going to matter when the guy's putting up 147 on you. I don't know what happened with Waddle. Just Jamar Chase, not the best week. His X factor is A. Jones, down week. 98, not awful, not bad, but it's not going to beat the top tier teams. Not the type of performance you feel great about going into the last week of the season with. A lot of, I think, more questions than answers on what you're doing with your lineup. But yeah, it's just tough. That's all I really see here. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to bring up is look at the defense Milkman's running. He's got that number one of the top defenses out there right now. Some will argue number one. So yeah, and then touch on the kicker, Bass, he's been consistent, but he's had a couple pretty high weeks lately. And then you got Tyreek Hill, Derrick Henry, and then Herbert, I think, only threw one touchdown this week, but down from 3 touchdowns last week, and he still almost cracked 20 points. So
yeah,
overall, I think we can expect to see this team putting up no less than like 125, 130 fantasy points.
And this is a team that you can look at. I mean, I think there were texts sent in the group. This team was struggling. I think there might have been 5-6 or 4-6, and they've been on a little bit of run. We can look at the standings, see what kind of win streak he's been on. But yeah, it's just a team on a mission right now, and it's a little bit scary.
And Cam Akers is going to only see more play time with the Rams.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a must play moving forward for him, is putting Cam Akers in there, because I think that's 2 good weeks in a row, and I think same for AJ Dillon. But just looking at the standings here, just look at the Milkman while I'm thinking about it. 3 wins in a row, so he was sitting at 4-6, and has rattled off 3 in a row. But yeah, so looking at the standings here. Looking at we're going to highlight these 5 and 8 teams, just see, playoff scenario, who's getting in, who's getting knocked out, all pretty, up and down, pretty tight ratios. And I think Ryan was at a nice 12% last week, so jumped up to 30. Feels pretty good if I'm sitting him. But just, I did this a little bit earlier, looked into what's needed for these guys to get in. So just starting with Team Coleman off the top, he wins, he's in. That's the easiest scenario for him here. But if he does lose, he needs Risky Dipper to lose, Dicker Downs to lose, and Wuhan to lose. That's just so. If you don't win, you need some help. And I don't know who these people are all playing, but that's just winning in easy enough. Looking at Dipper, obviously needs a win, needs Coleman loss. And he does hold the tiebreaker over Dicker Downs and Wuhan with head-to-head matchups. So with a win and Coleman loss, he's all good to go. Ryan needs a win, a Dipper loss, and he does hold the tiebreaker over Coleman and Wazinski with Wuhan. So if Mike is to lose and Coleman and Dicker Downs win, I believe Dicker Downs would jump over Coleman.
Uh-huh.
So that's a little bit interesting how that's kind of working out. And then Wuhan needs a win, Dipper loss, Dicker Downs lost, and he actually ends a tiebreaker over Team Coleman with a win against him earlier this season. So Wuhan does have a chance, but I'm not sure exactly where I lean as far as who's going to secure that ace spot. We'll have to look at the upcoming week. But
what is this, the NFC South?
It's looking like that, but we're going to try to get this done in one video this time. Let's try to bang it out. Not too much to break down here. Try not to. So here's my matchup against Milkman. I'll show the full benches. I got a pretty rough bye week with Fields on bye, Watson on bye, and Kamara's on bye. So I think I'm going to lose. I think I'm going to secure that seventh spot unless you help me out and get a loss. And that's going to put me up against the Rock Boys for the first week of the playoffs. But I think the Milkman's going to run over me here. That's really all I need to say, just because I have no chance just due to my week with
Situation alone, yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I think we hit on Milkman. I think we know where he's at. I think he's James trending in the right direction. And yeah, well, I'll let you examine this one.
Oh man, this one, this could go any way possible, you know.
Tough bye week for Wuhan. No
Yeah.
active quarterback on the roster either.
And it's slim pickings right now too out there. So yeah, it might be smart just to drop Stafford, and I mean that's not someone you really want to hang on to anyways, and just see what you can get. I'm curious to see where he has on the waiver wire, but I guess we'll see come tomorrow morning anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think I do think Team Nate, if he does set a lineup, even if he doesn't, I think he might win. I just think Wuhan's really going to hurt not having Pittman and Rodgers in there. It's going to be tough for him to crack 90 points, and I think Team Nate, with some of the guys he has, can put up 100 with a incomplete lineup. So
Might be a good move on Wuhan's part to pursue that second draft pick.
yeah, it's projecting that way. It's looking that way, and I think it's going to end up that way. So with that being said, moving on. Oh man, look at you! Whew, you hold the fate of Little Dicker Downs in your hands. And are you going to let it slip? Or are you going to let him? You're going to take care of business.
Yeah, I think Kirko's going to put his chains on and get the job done this week. One thing I want to point out that I had noticed earlier when I was, crunching numbers is, Josh Allen did not hit his projected score last week against the Patriots, and he's up against that Jets defense this week. So he's got
They've been good. Yeah.
defensive week. So we'll see what he does. I think that's one of the bigger threats. But overall, there's some big names on the Dicker Downs team, and after his performance last week, I'm definitely a little nervous. But one thing to highlight, he's also, he doesn't have any tight ends on his bench, and his tight ends on bye, and
Yep.
if you're scrubbing the free agency right now, there's not a whole lot of options. And
Nope.
I did notice that Lord of the Rings is above him in the waiver wire as well. So we'll see what's available for him going into tomorrow.
Yeah, it could be a little foul play there, but totally legal.
Oh, easily.
Absolutely. But I'm just looking at this matchup. I gotta say, strong week from Dicker Downs last week. Just gonna be it's gonna be a toss up, man. I think this game's gonna be pretty close. You have not been getting a lot out of Saquon, and you've not, and Chubb's been up and down. So we'll see if Cleveland gets back to that ground and pound and doesn't rely on Watson so much. It's a lot of possibilities here, man. Swift could have a great game.
Kittle's got a quarterback.
Yeah, well, yeah, but we'll have to wait and see how that old situation plays out. I'd be amazed if they rock with Purdy the rest of the year, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
I'm also curious to see, how this Cowboys defense does against Houston, and then if Nico Collins is even able to, get open against that defense. So.
Well, I will say Cowboys have been rolling, so I do think, as far as that specific matchup goes, Houston's going to be throwing the ball a lot. Their quarterback play is horrendous, but that does mean a large amount of targets for Collins. So you could play the volume game. Yeah, it's not a terrible matchup. It's not a great match. It's just lot can go either way for both of these teams. So I'm gonna lean towards you getting the win here, but I do think it's going to be pretty close.
Appreciate that, Coach.
Moving on here, a little possible jump here for Bucher if he gets the win and Rock Boys takes the L to jump into that second spot and have a easier matchup against probably my team most likely, like I talked about earlier. But Connor Among Thieves, they're projecting a pretty tight game here. Well, that's Connor Among Thieves needs a kicker, so I'm sure he'll take care of business there. Try to secure that 12-2 record. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, what do you see here?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. on average, Connor among D's is always projected around, the same kind of range, and then just happens to put up crazy numbers. So I'll be curious to see what Burrow does going into this week. And either way, though, I got Geno Smith up against Carolina, so like I think both teams are probably outscore what their projected total is. I think it's going to be a close match, but as much as I'd love to see, Butcher beat Georgia's team, it could go either way in my opinion.
Yeah, I honestly just kind of looking off glances here. I do kind of think that Team Bucher can really smash his projection. Geno Smith played a phenomenal game against a pretty decent Rams defense last week, and playing a bad Carolina one this week. And then Tony Pollard against Houston. I mean, that could be 60, 70 points between those two right there. It's hard to root against Connor among Thieves, but I think I do kind of lean towards Bucher here. Team's been rolling. Team's been getting a lot of wins.
Pat's
And
defense.
against Arizona, yeah, Kyler's good for probably a couple picks, or some fumbles here and there from somebody on that team. That's a pretty down and out team right now, so turnovers could be a plenty. I do see. Yeah, no, I do kind of lean Bucher here, honestly. I know that's not what the projection says, but I think he has a good chance to win and possibly take over that 2 spot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But we'll have to wait and see. Next one, this is going to be a really interesting match because obviously this is, Coleman's winning in scenario. Fentonel's going to have to pick up a quarterback. Projections are going to be tight. Man, I do lean Fentanyl off first look. I don't know what you're going to get out of Zon in the night against that Buffalo defense, but Dalvin Cook's been moving. Ezekiel Elliott's been moving. Got a lot of options. Devonta Smith on the bench. Pickens on the bench. Pickens has a bad week last week, but I just think Team Coleman doesn't have that oomph. I thought Jamar Chase was going to be that guy, and 13 points, but Waddle only got him 2, so kind of eliminates that whole threat. And running back situation's a little bit rough there. So for that reason, I lean Fentanyl to get the win and secure an 8-6 record and put Coleman on the chopping block.
Yeah, but this is another one too. With Hurst down right now, Coleman's also out looking for a tight end, just like Dicker Downs.
It's a bad market to be in, man. Tight ends of, like I think I said last week, you have Kelsey or you got nobody, and that's and there's a whole lot of nothing out there, like you said. But continue.
The past 2 weeks have been terrible for tight ends, with the exception of Kelsey as well. So
yeah, even last week Kelsey was down too, so it's tough.
But then Fentanyl on the flip side, he's in need of a quarterback, and there's not a whole lot of studs sitting on the free agency right now. So I think it's going to be, these teams are going to be both, neck and neck going into it. I am going to lean Coleman on this one, though.
Okay, going a little different than me.
Yeah. But pull that back up. I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of quarterback love out of there. And Fentonyl's a team that definitely tends to rely on Jackson, and it's doubled down as far as Mark Andrews goes too. I think you can see his points drop off a little bit with Jackson being out. He's one of his favorite targets. So
no, yeah, I can definitely see that. I think it will. I'll take a look at the the free agent quarterbacks right now, but yeah, I mean, I think with the Greg Roman offense, when Tyler Huntley's in the game, they call a lot of short, quick stuff, which they don't like. They like to get the ball out wide to the wide receivers win that situation. I don't know why the offense changes so dramatically when Huntley comes in versus Lamar. The play calling is totally different, but that's a conversation for a different day. But that I think that definitely will either help Mark Andrews thrive in a PPR setting, or just they're going to get the ball out wide and make and let those receivers try to run after the catch. But so that's a good point there to that. But looking at the quarterbacks who are available right now, and there could be guys dropped. You never know.
Huntley or Russ, probably.
Yeah, I think Huntley's going to get picked up by somebody this week, whether it's going to be a foul play, not a foul play, but a fantasy move by somebody picking up to block somebody else. But there are some options out there to kind of hold something. There's some decent matchups in here with some of these guys to do something. So it's not the best looking group of guys I've ever seen, but for a 1 week play in when he's already secured a playoff spot. So it's not like it's the end of the world if he loses. But there are some guys you can plug in and
It
hopefully get a
very
job.
well could be when you look at who's lined up against that first week of playoffs. So that could be sudden death if you're up against George or the Milkman. So
Yeah, well, it's going to be a problem for Fentanyl is if Lamar is out, past this week against the Steelers, then I think he really jumps into problems. Just
hopefully he
looking
comes
forward.
back, Baltimore's sake and Fentanyl's sake.
Sure, yeah, you never like to see guys down on injury.
As far as the tight end situation goes, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'd be interested to see if Coleman is above Risky Dipper when it comes to waiver wire order.
Yeah, we can take a look at the waiver report. That's not what I wanted to see. Oh, that was already happened, so I didn't reveal anything bad. But here's the waiver order. Nate, not taking advantage of that number one spot. So Coleman in the 3 spot in a good position to probably pick somebody up. Fentanyl's all the way down at 8. You're actually ahead of him too. I'm sitting at
multiple games. It looks like.
Yep. So Fentanyl might have slim pickings at the quarterback position if somebody else tries to do something in the tight ends. We were talking about Dicker Downs. He's in dead last, so he's going to be if anybody is in hunt for a tight end ahead of him, he's going to have even slimmer pickings.
Wow.
But let's just see who's out there tight end wise.
It looks like Jacksonville's the best option right now.
Yeah, Evan Ingram's super swingy. Ballinger's been pretty solid, but he's playing that tough Philly defense. So there's some options. Nothing super exciting because the tight end position never is in fantasy this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's some playability, there's some viability, but we'll have to wait and see what all processes tomorrow as far as that goes. But yeah, just looking at this game, I just think if you can plug in pedestrian quarterback play, get 12 to 15 points out of your quarterback, Fentanyl has a superior lineup in my mind. Just a lot of these guys are super swingy. And the running back room really scares me with Coleman, but I could see it going the other way, but I do lean Fentanyl. But yeah, you said you lead Coleman, so I'll have to revisit that next week. But last matchup here, we got about 6 minutes left on the call, so we're doing pretty good. Rock Boys versus Risky Dipper. My apologies, Risky. But yeah, I think this is just a matchup where
this one's we already know the outcome of this one.
Yeah, I'm wondering why his point. Well, I know he's got Aaron Jones out. You can put Najee in, but that still only gives him 96 points. That's
Najee's been looking good though, but 96. But that's a 10-point difference. Let's eye up Rock Boys and see what's big. So his stud, Kelsey is up against that Denver defense. So we'll see how that goes. Number 1 against tight end. So yeah, I think number 2 is New Orleans. So it's definitely against tight end. So yeah, it might be a tough week for Travis Kelsey. So,
but I don't think Rock Boys needs him in this one. I think he might have to switch out Palmer there for maybe not a lot of options on the bench. Maybe you got to ride with him, but I don't think he needs Palmer either because Higgins has been playing great. Miles Sanders and Eckler have been great. Amari Cooper's a little swingy now that he didn't have a good week last week with Watson being in there, but no, I think Rock Boys just handles business here, secures that 2 spot, and kind of just bumps Risky out of contention.
Yeah, so this is probably good news for some of the other teams that look like they have a tighter matchup, like Dicker Downs.
Yeah. So let's just go back and revisit those 5 and 8 teams. So we're saying we both agree that Risky's going to get the L here, so that eliminates him. Coleman, I said you said he's going to win. I think he's going to lose. So obviously, if you're right, he's in. If I'm right, he needs some help. And we're looking here. I said coin flip. I know you think you're going to win here, so I'm not going to ask. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Dicker Downs to pull off. So I do kind of lean towards you, and I did even with not setting his lineup. I think Wuhan's done. So in that scenario, if you're either if I'm right or on Coleman or you're either of us are right, he's in because everyone else is I think we think is going to lose. So that's kind of funny. I'm sure it won't turn out that way. I'm sure it'll be a fun twist. Hopefully everybody has a good week and puts their best foot forward. But yeah, it should be interesting. Just kind of looking ahead at the playoffs real quick. Just look at the possible, not the well. Didn't mean to click on that, but take a quick peek at it. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, Connor Monk, the projected winner. Rock Boys. I mean, it's based off our standings now, so nothing really crazy there. Playoff bracket, perfect. All right, so looking at it, all things considered, I think you and I flip flop. I think you're going to move to that 6 spot, and I think I'm going to take that 7. I have to face Rock Boys. Tough matchup. Don't love it. We could touch more on this stuff, next week when the playoffs are set. But you're going to be in the 6 against Team Bucher most likely. Another toughie. Man, I do think there's a pretty large discrepancy between 1-4 and 5-8 at this point in our league.
Definitely.
So I think no matter who you get out of these, I think these top 4 are going to stay in the top 4. I really don't see a tremendous opportunity for anybody who's playing Connor or Rock Boys.
It's going to be a Connor, Milkman, Bucher, Rock
Yeah,
Boys.
it's hard not to go chalk and lean favorites, especially with them getting the 3-point home field advantage as well. So that's tough too. But no, it'll be interesting, man. I hope to see a little bit of shakeup. I hope we see some upsets. Make this a little bit more interesting.
Oh, one last thing we should talk about is
Yeah.
just to get the thought out there. If you look at the keepers, the deadline for it, I think, is end of July right now.
Yeah.
Is that something we want to keep that way, or maybe put a vote out to see if we want to push that out to just
Before the draft?
Just before the draft? Yeah, so we can
Yeah.
where injuries are and everything. And
yeah, it's a good point to bring that up, because I think at the end of the year, I think the goal is going to be to kind of put a little consensus up. I'm going to kind of get different ideas from different people and put a bunch of polls up in the ESPN app itself. And we're just gonna, and if that doesn't work, we'll send texts and get feels for that kind of stuff. It's about rule changes, draft status, waivers, how many keepers we want, when the dates are, things like that. So we can definitely vote on all that stuff for sure at the end of the year. So I'm definitely open to changing anything to make it for where everybody wants it to be, to think it's best league it can possibly be. So
I'm sorry to throw a curveball like that at you. And then also,
you're good.
Let's check out that losers bracket while we got like a minute left.
All right, let's take a quick peek. Oh, that's
look at that number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's number 1 solidified with Nate. And then I don't think this order is really going to change unless Digger Downs pulls the upset against you, but I think we're pretty much set.
Nah. I think it looks pretty set, yeah.
But let me stop sharing. We're about done. We did it in one call again. Didn't feel as rushed this time. Pretty good, but say goodnight.
Yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully, it works out for you guys. And I'd be curious to see what the picks out of the free agency look like come tomorrow morning. Might be some tricks up some sleeves.